5.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy 5-Piece producer and engineer extraordinaire, and I'm back with another lesson for you guys. Today I want to talk about EQ, and specifically ways to EQ effectively. A lot of people always ask, how should I EQ my tracks? What's the best way to approach identifying problem frequencies and getting rid of them? I have a few strategies here, so I'll share with you probably my favorite ones and the ones that I use most. So we'll jump into Pro Tools and I'll show you what's going on. So I got this song here. It's actually a single that I dropped recently. It's called Don't Feel the Same. It's by myself as the producer / artist, but it features vocals from Gudini, Rich Kid, and Romeyo Wilson. As always, I'll include a link in the description if you guys want to take it in and save it to your playlists. I definitely would love that. But what we're going to focus on right now is Gudini's vocal. He's got the first verse on this track, and we're just going to listen to it. I'm going to point out a few different ways we can EQ this because there are some problem spots. But real quick, I'll just play a little bit of it so you can understand what we're dealing with. And this is pretty much raw, at least the main vocal. Done some processing on the backups and the ad-libs, but we'll just focus on the main for now.
What you mean my little homie got hit tonight? Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we living to die. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I'm trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride. Right before you passed on, I told him to rap on. Man, I love how you and Rich be killing the rap songs. 2 chicks with him, I told him you damn wrong. Then we paused for a second, proceeded to laugh on.
I'm just gonna cut it there for now. Let's just solo his actual vocal as well and just kind of listen, and you'll be able to hear a little bit more of certain problems.
Me and my little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we living to die. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I was trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride.
So when I solo it, you hear the problems a little bit more. I want to just, before doing anything, encourage that you don't make any decisions in solo mode. I want you to just sort of listen and get an idea of context using solo mode, maybe just hearing certain things. But ultimately, every decision you make should be done in the context of your actual record with the beat and everything playing, because your end listener is not going to listen to your vocal soloed. They're going to be hearing the whole thing, every track playing at the same time. So the first thing I noticed about this vocal is there's a pretty good amount of low end, especially in those low mids sort of area. I think Goo, if I'm not mistaken, we recorded this in a booth that wasn't really the best booth to record in, to be honest. There's sort of a boxy type of sound that we can hear. So we're probably going to want to address that. There may also be some harsh high-end resonance at certain points that we want to address. And overall, the vocal does sound a little dark. So what I think we're going to do is ultimately have to cut a few things, aka remove a couple of problem frequencies, while also sort of accentuating and adding some harmonics using some boosts. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take just a stock EQ here from Pro Tools. Love using the stock stuff just to show you guys and make a point. And the first thing we're going to do is focus on using a filter to filter out the low end of the vocal, at least as much of the low end as possible that we don't need. This low end is usually responsible for muddiness and a lack of clarity in the vocal, and that's why we want to get rid of it. And also by getting rid of it, we're going to allow the beat, the main parts of the beat at least, such as the bass, the kick, the stuff that really lives in the low end, we're going to allow that to live and have room to breathe without having the vocal come in and clash with it. So I'm going to take this out of solo mode for a second, and what we're going to do is, I'm going to sort of show you what we're going to do. We're going to put the filter in, all right, you see it coming in here at the end. I'm going to bump up the slope to maybe a 12 dB octave. Sometimes I'll go as high as an 18, but I'll keep it at 12 for now. I'm going to play this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sweep across, right, and I'm going to try to find the point at which the vocal really changes. Once I find that point, it's usually going to sound thinner, but once I find that point, I'm going to back off and then sort of compensate and not remove as much. I just need to, push it a little further than I'm supposed to, and then compensate and make sure it's not as noticeable or intrusive as it was at that point. So here we go, I'm going to play it and do exactly what I just said, starting from the far left here.
Me and my little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we living to die. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I was trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride. Right before you passed on, I told him to rap on. Man, I love how you and Rich be killing the rap songs. 2 chicks with him, I told him you damn wrong. Then we paused for a second, proceeded to laugh on. Took 1 to the chest, man, nothing can last long. Left 2 kids behind, I know it's a sad song. All of the past gone, life can be so.
So that seems to be a pretty good spot. I'm rolling off around 105 hertz and below. You may have noticed I swept up, and then once I got into that 250 sort of area, 250 hertz, it started sounding thin. That makes sense. The low end, while it can be muddy, it's also responsible for a lot of the warmth and presence of a vocal. So if you overdo this, your vocal's going to start sounding thin, not really ideal at all. Now, we are losing some low end, as you can tell when I play this and I A-B it. And you can tell that even though I'm losing that, I'm not really worried. The reason why is when I use some things like compression later, I'll probably be able to make up for that. The most important thing here is that I'm just cleaning up the vocal and making space again for the stuff in the low end that really, really matters, and just making sure that this vocal is clear and just sounds cleaner than it does currently, right? So this is sort of step one. We're using the filter first to remove the low end and clean up the vocal. The next step I would take here is purely subtractive. I'm not focused on any additive EQ. I don't want to boost frequencies and enhance things. By doing that, I can usually create a lot more problems than I need, at least right now. So what I want to do is instead, I want to focus on identifying some problem frequencies, like I said, like that boxiness sound that I was talking about, maybe some of that harsh high end that I was talking about as well. I want to focus on finding these resonant frequencies and removing them first. By removing things, I'm just making a lot more space in my track. And it may not sound as good, quote unquote, but I can always add volume later using the output. I can, remove some stuff and then give you the illusion that I'm actually increasing everything by just increasing the volume of the track, because I'm taking away frequencies, which is technically going to reduce the volume in most situations. So here we go. Let's do this together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first point here. I'm going to make the Q pretty narrow. All right, so something like that. And I'm going to do an extreme boost. Somewhere around there, maybe 10 dB or more. And this is my preferred way to EQ. What I like to do is I like to really enhance that frequency. I like to overdo it. I would not keep it like this, obviously. What I'm doing here is I'm going to kind of sweep across, and any frequencies that seem very, very resonant, I'm going to sort of, decide if I want to actually keep them in or reduce them, right? And it's usually going to be a couple of dB, but I'll show you right now. We'll just sort of do this together, and I'll explain after.
My little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I was trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride. Right before he passed on.
So right here at 439, I could kind of hear that boxiness coming in, right? Is that it?
My little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge.
Right, you can kind of hear it's coming up. Obviously we're clipping or whatever. I'm not going to keep this in. We're just using this to identify the problem frequency. So now that I've done that, what I like to do is I like to actually just really notch it all the way down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this and slowly reintroduce the frequency until I get it into a point that sounds quote unquote natural to me. All right, so I'm going to take it all the way out and we'll do this together.
My little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I was trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride. Right before he passed on, I told him to rap on. Man, I love how you ain't rich, be killing the rap songs. Two chicks with him. I told him you damn wrong. Then we paused for a second, proceeded to laugh on.
So you could tell it doesn't really feel like I'm losing as much, as I did obviously when I had it notched all the way down. So we're reducing it by just about 3 dB. The number, again, doesn't really matter. I never really stress about the numbers. I stress about, making sure things aren't clipping and making sure that everything sounds natural, organic, in the way that it should. And in this case, I don't think we're removing something that's, too much. We're not doing too much work here. Let's do this again with another band. So I'm going to make a very narrow Q once again and increase it. And I'm probably going to focus on this lower area again because I did feel something around that 200 range, but I want to double check. Could be something in the high end as well. We're just sweep across and try to find a problem.
My little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I was trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride. Right before he passed on, I told him to rap on. Man, I love how you.
So this area is quite a bit of mud, right? It's 230 area. I find 250 to 300 can be very muddy in general with vocals. So I may want to just reduce this a little bit. So I'm going to do that. Same sort of premise. Exaggerate that cut and then reintroduce it until I find a spot that seems musical.
My little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I was trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride.
So it's pretty subtle. Not a huge difference, you know what I mean, but just helping clean up that area a little bit. Let's do one more on the top end here. And again, I keep my EQ fairly narrow. The reason why I keep it narrow is because it's going to focus on a small group of frequencies. Whereas when I have it wide like that, we're focusing on a bunch. We're going to be affecting many. May not want to do that. Narrow cuts like I have here in general just are going to be a lot less noticeable in my experience. So I recommend doing that. Whereas again, a wider cut will make it seem a lot more noticeable. You'll be affecting a lot more frequencies at the same time. So let's do this.
Me and my little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I'm trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride. Right before he passed on, I told him to rap on. Man, I love how you and Rich be killing the rap songs. 2 chicks with him. I told him you damn wrong. Then we paused for a second, proceeded to laugh on. Took one to the...
So there's something going on here around this 3.5. I want to be careful in this area because this is also where a lot of the intelligibility of the vocal can be. However, like I could hear there is a little bit of a resonance, so I may be inclined to just reduce it a tiny amount. So similar thing, notching it all the way down. Let me reintroduce.
Me and my little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I'm trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride.
So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna bypass this and we'll hear everything without, and I'll put it in and we'll see what it sounds like.
Me and my little homie got hit tonight. Why I feel like it's hell on earth and we live in the Dodge. The streets got us in a trap and we hypnotized. I'm trying to ride in the foreigns, he ain't get to ride. Right before he passed on, I told him to rap on. Man, I love how you and Rich be killing the rap songs. 2 chicks with him. I told him you damn wrong. Then we paused for a second, proceeded to laugh on. Took one to the chest, man, nothing could last long. Left 2 kids behind, I know it's a sad song. All of the past gone, life could be so cheap.
You guys get the idea, you know. You can just tell it sounds a lot cleaner, a lot tighter. And it's kind of funny because we're removing frequencies, so we're not really adding things. A lot of people are focused on a very additive approach, adding a lot of stuff in, trying to boost and enhance stuff. But this approach is a lot better. I just find it helps you clean things up and make room for other elements, right? And you can go into other sounds that may be clashing and remove problem frequencies that might clash with this sound, for example. So I definitely recommend you do a subtractive approach like I'm doing here. It gives you this funny illusion where even though I'm notching out these frequencies, for example, it's almost as if I'm boosting the stuff in between, right? Because it does feel like the high-end presence comes up a little bit when I put this EQ on, even though all I'm doing is cutting and removing stuff. And if you're not sure, I would definitely recommend you just rewind the clip and double check, do your own A/B, and see what I'm talking about. So this is definitely my preferred method of EQ. Boosting frequencies, trying to identify resonant problems, and then notching them out as much as I possibly can while slowly reintroducing them until I find a spot where they're fairly balanced and musical and it's not very noticeable. Now this is just one step. There's a lot more to do on this vocal, but I wanted this tutorial to be focused on EQ. If I was to do some other stuff, it would definitely be some compression and evening things out. This will also help compensate for some of the frequencies that we're losing and just glue the whole track together, so I'll save that for another tutorial. But I hope you got value out of this one. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends, producer friends, artist friends, vocalists that you know that are recording and mixing themselves. I hope they'll find some value in this, just like you did, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Peace out.
5